Thank you for clicking on my face and welcome back. Before we get started, I do want to thank the sponsor of this video. This video is brought to you by the artist formerly known as Truebill, now known as Rocket Money, which has grown from a bill management app to a full-on finance empowerment tool. Really helpful financial tools like setting up budgets that automatically monitors your spending category. You get friendly notifications if you exceed it. Financial guardrails, very important stuff when you're, adulting. Monitor your credit score. You get complete access to your credit report and history. Rocket Money alerts you of important changes that impact your credit score because it was great that you found that PS5, but you did put it on the credit card. So it's going to be like, hey, you should pay that off. And canceling unwanted subscriptions is going to be, that's always going to be the greatest tool I will always think is amazing. I actually had two recurring monthly I wasn't using. That stuff adds up, man. So click the link in the description, go to rocketmoney.com/Johns, try it out for free and unlock more features with premium. And now the finale of Better Call Saul is aired. About a week and a half ago. It's a week and a half later, so I do apologize for that. But I do still want to talk about this. I want to talk about Better Call Saul. Not necessarily the finales. I don't think I'm going to title this finale review. I do want to give my thoughts on Better Call Saul in general, the impression it left with me, my experience going through it. Generally speaking, I've done Better Call Saul videos before, so I'm going to try to not be too redundant and give you information I've already given. But I do want to give you my thoughts on the show that I see as an amazing character drama. And also, it might very well be the gold standard of a tie-in or a prequel made from a property that's very beloved by fans and not relying on nostalgia to sell or drive the whole thing. Also, this is going to be spoiler-free review because I genuinely believe that Better Call Saul is worth experiencing. More importantly, worth experiencing for you without knowing how it all goes down. Right, even in my House of the Dragon video, people who read the books are like, oh, you think it's this? It's actually gonna be this. I'm like, thanks, Dick. Thanks for telling me. Now I know. I know something I'm not supposed to know. It's a shit feeling, so I'm not gonna give you that shit feeling. But I really mean it when I say Better Call Saul might very well be the gold standard of making a prequel or spin-off without relying on nostalgia. Not to say it doesn't have nostalgia in it, but those moments that are tied into nostalgia or tied into something that you later see the conclusion of or the fruition of in Breaking Bad, these moments in Better Call Saul, generally speaking, we're talking like 99% of the time, 99 point something, like 99 and some change. Most of the time, it is to drive the characters forward, drive the plot forward in a very organic way. Granted, in the last 4 episodes or so, it was more nostalgia leaning than the show had done before it, but I gotta admit, I did enjoy it. And even at a point, there was a question, a hypothesis that was given, and I was like, I hadn't thought of that. But you can tell Vince Gilligan and that crew, like, they thought of it, and they were like, we didn't even address that. So I'm glad they addressed it. I really liked that conversation. Like, when I first heard that they were bringing in Giancarlo Esposito to play Gus Fring in Better Call Saul, I was like, oh yeah, because you have to do that because, nostalgia. But it's not that. I'm just used to that because most entertainment does that. They're like, we're going to bring in this character. Because, is this button too low? I feel like I should button it up to at least this one. Yeah, whatever. We'll go full Jeff Goldblum. In the show Better Call Saul, you're seeing Saul Goodman's past, James McGill as he's known back then. So why not bring in Mike Ehrmantraut? But because you brought Mike in, you do have to show Gus Fring because Mike gets wrapped up with Gus Fring. And since you're showing Gus Fring, you get to show the tension with the cartel and how that started to simmer, how it started to really boil. Because in Breaking Bad, it was Walter White's story. And Gus Fring, there was tension with the cartel, but I always felt like there was a much bigger story there that we just never saw. I'm glad that in Better Call Saul, we get to see that. Also, enter the Terminator. I know I talked about Lalo Salamanca before, but I'm going to say it again because he's amazing. Better Call Saul delivered a couple characters where I'm like, these are the best characters in the, what would it be called? The Breaking Bad verse? The Better Call Bad verse? The Breaking Saul verse? The Albuquerque verse. There we go. Incredible characters. Lalo Salamanca, Nacho Vargas. I gotta say, in the previous season or part 1 of this, at first it was like, oh, season 5 is gonna be divided into season 5 part 1, then season 5 part 2. There's a reason I didn't do a video on season 5 part 1, because I was like, I'll just do season 5 as a, oh wow, now it's listed as season 5 and season 6. So I just kind of didn't do a video on a season of Better Call Saul. Point is, Nacho has this moment where you're like, he is a legend forever. But also with Gus Fring, you get to see how vicious, how truly mean Gus Fring is. You saw the mask off in that scene in Breaking Bad where he had Walter White in the desert and he's talking about he's going to kill his family.
I will kill your infant daughter.
And in Better Call Saul, we got that Gus Fring more for longer. And again, wrapped up in characters, pushing characters forward that had to do with Nacho Vargas, where you're like, dude, you're a bad guy. I mean, we all always knew Gus was a bad guy, but Walter White clearly wasn't as good a businessman as Gus Fring. So when it was Walt and Gus Fring, it was like, oh, enemy of my enemy kind of thing. Sorry, Gus, but we're rooting for Walt because we're a fucked up audience that roots for people like Walter White, I guess. I guess I'm talking about this so much because I'm still impressed with the fact that Gus Fring was brought into Better Call Saul. Giancarlo Esposito was brought in, and it never felt like nostalgia bait. It only fleshed out his character more. It only fleshed out more characters by proxy around him more, and expanded the world, expanded the universe, and expanded the tension that you see in Breaking Bad to where you understand it more. And I gotta give some love to the character Howard. Everyone in this show should be proud of the job they did. There's not a weak link in the entire thing, but Howard is an amazing arc, more importantly, an amazing flip. Well, I guess generally this video is spoiler-free in terms of talking about the show and the finale and how the arcs wrap up. But for the past couple seasons, there have been goings on with the back and forth of Saul Goodman and Howard, and I've enjoyed that back and forth, and so I want to talk about it. Because it's kind of like, you ever seen The Fly? Cronenberg's Fly with Jeff Goldblum. It's a weird comparison, but I will get there. When we first meet Howard, he's a smarmy guy. He looks down on Jimmy McGill. He doesn't like him at all.
What can we do for you, Jimmy?
And you're like, oh, okay, he's the rich, successful, egocentric asshole. So of course we hate him. And then at a point, Saul Goodman just fucks with Howard so much. You're like, yeah, sticking it to him, yes. And then at a point I was like, I think Howard's genuinely trying to be nice to you. And now oh my God, I've just enjoyed you ruining his life so much. It reminds me of the flip in Cronenberg's The Fly, where you have Seth Brundle, Jeff Goldblum, he's obviously the good guy, he's the one we're rooting for, and then you have smarmy boyfriend guy, and you're like, oh, obviously he's the asshole, we're supposed to hate him. Then by the end, you're like, nope, smarmy asshole's just kind of, yeah, he came across as unlikable sometimes, but it's because he was going against our guy. Now it's just kind of, it's flipped now. That was very much how I felt about Howard. Howard is an amazing testament. It's an amazing arc to, just because you find someone unlikable does not mean they're bad. And it does not mean they deserve the shit they're getting. I thought it was an amazingly done arc in Better Call Saul. And I gotta give some love to the character Kim Wexler. Bob Odenkirk and Rhea Seehorn have an amazingly believable chemistry of these two people who just, when they get together, they truly are partners in crime. And usually in the context of a story like this, I'm not one for love interests. They usually feel forced. This one didn't. I thought it was a very well done and thought-provoking relationship where you look at them, you look at people, and you realize that there are people that feed off of each other in a way that it's not good. And it doesn't mean all the people in that situation, all parties involved, are to their core bad people. But that's what I love about this universe, this world, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. It's very complex writing for characters that are not so black and white. The only thing that really stands out to me in the show as a thing that it's just kind of, it always kind of made me chuckle, and then I would forget about it, and by the end of the show, you don't care. You do notice it the first time, though, is that there are a lot of characters who are in Breaking Bad, who are in Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul is a few years before Breaking Bad, but these characters look around 10 years older than they did in Breaking Bad because the actors themselves, yes, are 10 years older than they were in Breaking Bad. But I do love the continuity of the fact that Vince Gilligan was like, no, the actors who played the characters in Breaking Bad, they're going to play the characters in Better Call Saul. The audience will be fine with it. More fine than a recasting. A recasting would be so weirdly out of place. I wouldn't have that connection with the worlds. It's a show that I do want to rewatch immediately right now because admittedly, the show didn't grab me until a couple seasons in. The whole time, I don't know why. I was like, okay, Saul Goodman. I'm like, all right, come on, be the lawyer. Saul Goodman, we want to see him be the lawyer. He doesn't become Saul Goodman for a while. I mean, we're talking seasons. I think it was season 3. Was it season 4? Point is, I was waiting for the wrong thing. I was looking at it through the incorrect lenses, and that's completely on me. Because you're not seeing the genesis of a lawyer. You are seeing the life and expansion of a con man and his tactics. Being a lawyer, that's just a thing he did so he could better con within the law, but he's still a con man. But in the end, Better Call Saul was an amazing character drama in its own right. And I have to stress that. Great characters, great world building, great suspense. That slow burn that might be too slow for some people, but if you stick with it, you're going to have an entertainment experience that's going to stick with you. It has fun tie-ins with Breaking Bad, but it doesn't rely on Breaking Bad to really hold Better Call Saul up. Better Call Saul is not in Breaking Bad's shadow. Breaking Bad is not in the shadow of Better Call Saul. Anyhow, that's my video. Just wanted to tell you about Better Call Saul and the impression it left with me and the reason I liked it. All right, so Better Call Saul, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever you thought, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more. Cannot believe it's all over. What an end of an era.